10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 494. Hey everybody, before we dive in, as usual, just wanted to let you know that all of these podcast episodes are available as videos on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and just type in my name, Nick Maynella, and go to my channel, the latest video will be this episode right here if you're listening to it on the week that it comes out. So if you'd like a visual clarification for anything that we're talking about in this audio-only version, highly suggest going over and checking out the video. All right, that's it. Enjoy the episode. Hey everybody, welcome back. New month means new series, and this month we're going to take a look at giant steps. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because a little while ago I put out a video on giant steps, and it was all about using key centers to solo over it, simplifying it. And I got a lot of feedback from that video that people want me to go a little bit deeper into this tune. So that's what we're going to do. Now, if you haven't checked out that video, I'll leave a card for it somewhere. It allows you to get started with this tune right away. But this month, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the ins and outs of the harmony, talking about this tune on a little bit more of a granular level so that you can handle everything that this tune throws at you. Now, before we dive in, I just want to quickly mention you can get all of the materials for this episode by joining Jazz School and choosing to support the channel with a small monthly donation. You'll get the lead sheets in concert, B-flat, E-flat, and bass clef. You also get backing tracks, and you'll get demonstration tracks for anything that I'm playing in this episode. So if you like what we're doing here and you want all the materials, click the link in the description, go and get signed up. The membership is free, and then once you're in, you can choose to support us or not. The other thing I want to mention before we dive into this is I am taking a pretty comprehensive approach to learning this harmony. So what we're not going to do this month is I'm not just going to give you a bunch of tips and tricks and licks to play over the top of this tune. My goal here is to deeply study this harmony so that you come out of it with a true understanding of how it all works and that you can really hear the progression. So if you're looking for a quick hit, hey, here's a pattern to play over giant steps, this really is not the place to do it. We're focused on actually learning this tune for the long haul so that you really understand it. And yeah, it might move a little bit more slowly than you want it to, but you're going to come out of this process with a true ability to play over this harmony, I hope. Okay, so let's dive right in. The first thing I want to mention is that it's based off of these three really disparate key centers that are a major third apart from each other. So the three key centers being concert B major, concert G major, and concert E flat major. Three very, very different key signatures, and it very quickly moves in between those, which is what I think makes this tune so intimidating. So what we're going to talk about today is to simply play one note per chord to start out with, and then we'll get a tiny bit more advanced than that in the second example. But I want you to think about something. If you want to be able to rip through giant steps, the first step to being able to do that is to be able to play one quality note over each chord. And if you can't do that, it makes sense, right, that we're never going to be able to play something amazing once we open ourselves up to a lot of notes over every chord symbol. So it has a way of, we have to prove to ourselves that we can play at least one note over every single chord change. And it also has the advantage of understanding the voice leading in this tune, where they're common tones, and starting to find our way through these changes and hearing these changes over and over and over again. Okay, so let's look at the first example that I've prepared for you. So the idea here is that you pick a chord tone and then you simply play the closest chord tone of the next chord, and you work your way through the tune with that principle in mind. So I've chosen just an arbitrary chord tone for the first chord, which is the third. So the third over B major 7. And then what you'll notice is I'm just moving to the closest chord tone over the next chord. Now I'm staying on a common tone. common tone, common tone. So you see, there's a lot that actually stays the same between all of these chord changes, and that's what this exercise tries to point out, is the voice leading between them. So let me keep going. 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. And then I go on for one more chorus. So that's it. It's such a simple idea. And what I've done is I've prepared these 2 choruses for you so that you just have something to get started with. But the ultimate goal is that you figure out your own way to do this, because this is just one possibility among many. So let me play these 2 choruses for you with a backing track so that you can actually hear it in context. Okay, so there's example number 1. Now I want to introduce one more concept to you this week, and that is to just play half notes for the entire progression, but keep that same thing in mind, that we're trying to find voice leading that goes through the entire form, and that provides a lot of half steps, whole steps, and common tones. But there's something different about this. When we get to, for instance, measure 3, where there's one chord, we're still going to play half notes. So we're just going to pick another chord tone. And this is going to dramatically change the way that we weave through the changes, because in the second half of that bar, we'll be coming from a different note, and it changes the path through the changes. So let's check out the first chorus of the exercise that I have for you using half notes. So this time I'm choosing the 5th over the first chord. Remember, you just choose a chord tone and then go. So here we go. So the big difference is that we hear 2 chord tones over any of those chords that last a whole bar. You can hear how dramatically that shifts the sound of the exercise. So let me play the 2 choruses that are prepared for you using half notes over the entire thing. Okay, so there you have it. Now, my advice for you on practicing this week The first thing is that you play my exercises to get your head in the space, see some examples of what we're trying to do here, hear the progression. Oh, and by the way, one thing that not many people will choose to do, but will absolutely supercharge your ability to hear this progression is to sing those two exercises. Probably not as hard as you think, because everything is like a common tone, a half step, or a whole step, and then in the second exercise, a couple of thirds built in there. But man, if you sing this, it is going to be so good for you. So highly, highly recommend that. Okay, so then the second step after you've played and sung both of my exercises is to come up with your own. Now, there's two ways to do this. You could write out your own exercise, and I've given you a sheet to write out one of your own if you like. But then the other thing that I think you should do once you start to get used to this and you start to gain some confidence is to improvise your own. So pick a chord tone and see if you can get your way through those changes with good voice leading. And that's sort of the ultimate test, because you're coming up with that on your own. But here's my piece of advice to you that I strongly, strongly recommend you observe. Go insanely slow when you're first starting to do this. I'm talking metronome at like 60 or 70. Remember, what we're trying to do is really understand and be able to hear these changes. And that requires going slow, especially if you haven't had much experience with this tune. So set that metronome to 60 BPM, or set your iReal Pro or Band in a Box or whatever you use to 60 BPM and try to weave your way through there using chord tones and really good voice leading. So that's it. That's your homework. And if you can do this quote unquote boring stuff for a week, everything else that we talk about this month, you're going to have such an easier time with. So do what you will with that advice. Next week, we're going to start playing a lot more notes. We're going to start testing ourselves to see if we can weave our way through this progression using much shorter note values, which forces us to play more notes. And remember, if you can't do a simple half note exercise over this, what makes you think you're going to be able to play an amazing solo? Just keep that in mind when it gets boring and you want to pivot to, playing a whole bunch of patterns. Can't do half notes, probably not going to be able to do much else. Okay, I think I've beat that to death enough. Just a reminder that you can get all of the materials for this episode by clicking the link in the description, coming over, signing up to join Jazz School, which is free. And then once you're over there, you can decide whether you want to support the channel. Thank you to everybody over there that's supporting us. We've got over 100 members getting these materials and enjoying the benefits that come along with being able to practice this stuff right away. So thank you to all of you, and thank you if you choose to support the channel. All right, everybody, have a great week. As always, thanks for hanging, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.